You are now tuned in to Where It Counts.
Hey, yo. What's up, y'all? I'm just going to hit y'all right off the bat with the TLDR for today's discussion. I, Haven, as a leftist with leftist ideology and principles, knowingly served the U.S. military. And if I'm being honest with you, for the most part, I don't really feel bad about doing so. And not only that, I think that at best, it is a disservice to a lot of leftist movements that so many spaces require veterans to flog ourselves while we confess to serving the evil empire in order for us to be taken seriously in these spaces, let alone have a voice in them. And at worst, I think it serves as a tool to silence people, specifically because so many veterans are Black people. Now, before we dive into the particulars of that statement,
let me tell you a story.
2007, I just dropped out of college and decided to move back in with my mother in South Florida. And at the time, it was kind of okay because I was working this somewhat shitty job at the UPS store in North Dade, making like $9 an hour. But that was enough, right? Because I could break a little bit of something off to help pay for bills at the house with my mom. I can maybe take a girl or two out that I met on Downlink. You know, that was me. Well, I mean, if I'm honest, that wasn't all of me. I was also a very politically engaged individual. But that's not really saying a lot because during this time, everybody was pretty politically engaged. Like, I think that we don't talk about the Bush presidency and specifically the tail end of the Bush presidency nearly enough. Like, I understand we just went through Obama and Trump and all that stuff. So a lot of the narrative has been lost, but I feel like it would really serve us if we were to properly describe the climate and atmosphere of America at the end of the Bush presidency. Like, y'all don't understand. It was very mainstream to be on the left, big tent left during this time. Like, it was so mainstream to be on the left that Al Gore started a whole ass TV network for lefties. It was so mainstream to be on the left that in order for Obama to even have a sliver of a shot at the presidency, he had to wrap the core of his entire campaign and root that shit into leftist rhetoric and policies. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was so mainstream to be on the left and to be anti-war that even mainstream teen melodramas had anti-war messaging.
You sign up for the army, it's not enough for you to lose one son?
Look, I did this before Clay, so you know?
No, I don't know. I don't know, Glenn.
I cannot believe this. Why would you do that?
I was trying to do something good.
My whole environment was basically left as fuck. And even then, I was to the left of most of those people. You know what I'm saying? At this time, my good friend that I had in high school had already died in the Iraq War. I had already read Eugene Jarecki's book, Why We Fight, and watched his documentary of the same name. And that delved into exactly how the U.S. government lied us into the Iraq War. And, you know, by the summer of 2007, Zeitgeist had already dropped, you know what I'm saying, on YouTube. So it was like, I was well on my way to being in my leftist conspiracy theory phase. You know what I'm saying? hardcore lefty. Wasn't thinking about the military at all. Everything around me was saying, fuck joining the military, fuck the Iraq war. We cannot wait to get rid of Bush's ass. So when people talk about the 2008 recession, I think a lot of times we talk about it as if that shit happened right at January 1st, 2008, and then everything was fucking pandemonium. And that's not exactly how it was. It was a very slow burn. And because it was a slow burn, there's a lot of psychological damage and trauma that came about because of how the events unfolded, right? So I don't know if you guys noticed this during our current recession, this pandemic-induced recession that we're dealing with right now. During the holiday seasons in 2020, a lot of economic pundits were talking about their worry of the rise in unemployment. Now, the reason why they had such a fire under their ass because of that is connected to what happened in the holiday seasons of 2007 and 2008. Now, by the fall and winter of 2007, we already saw a lot of people losing their jobs. And unfortunately, my mother and I were some of the unfortunate souls that suffered for the first culling of the recession, right? We were part of the warning of what was to come. Now, my mother had two jobs. She had a full-time job and a part-time job, right? And then I had my full-time job. So by Thanksgiving, my mother had lost her full-time job. And by Christmas, I had lost mine. So here we are, two adults rolling into 2008, surviving off of one part-time job at a hospital. And at the time, it didn't really feel that bad because it was like, hey, okay, like I lost my job and shit. Money's going to be tight. We've done this before. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hop on this here unemployment right quick, you know, and like I'll still be able to help pay bills. I'll still be able to do some hood rat shit with my friends and stuff. And by the time my unemployment runs out, I would have already found a job by then, right? So rolling into 2008. And everything is starting to feel dire, but people still have hope, right? Like everybody on TV and shit is still telling everyone that life is fine and things are safe. We're just going through this rough patch and all this other shit, right? So even though my unemployment has run out by now and money is getting tighter and tighter and tighter at home, you know, we're still trying to make do and figure things out. So immediately in the face of all these things and things just slowly getting worse and worse, I decided that I was going to join this free apprenticeship program that Florida was providing. And at the time I was like, yo, that's a great, you know, like I'm still unemployed. I haven't been able to find a job. And, you know, like being an artist is great, but my nigga, you might need a fucking like real trade, you know? So I thought, what better way than learning how to do construction and being a carpenter, because it's South Florida and everybody keeps fucking building shit, right? Then in September, it came out that Lehman Brothers was filing for bankruptcy. And my nigga, when that news came out, this is how the entire country felt. So by the time we roll into 2009, I've already been unemployed for 2 fucking years. And money is basically non-existent in my house. Me and my mom, we are just scrounging. Like it was a momentous special occasion for us to save up 49 cents for each of us to buy a cheeseburger or $1 so that we can buy ice cream cone from fucking McDonald's. We were surviving off of the hospital food my mom was swiping from work, which, side note, can I just express to you guys how utterly insane and disgusting it is where we can have a country going through an economic crisis where you could have miles long lines at a food bank, and in the same fucking area can have hospitals that will throw away food because they couldn't sell it at the end of the day, or didn't sell it at the end of the day. All while niggas are starving, trying to go to mutual aids and food banks and shit. Insanity. So I used to go into Broward County Community College, right, and steal their toilet paper. I understand, like in like public spots, they put their toilet paper, they lock that shit up in that little fucking case thing. You know, with the lock and key shit, that shit didn't matter to me. It could be plastic, it could be metal, you could put a lock on it. Either way, I was gonna pick that shit and I'm gonna steal all your toilet paper. Your toilet paper, your cleaning supplies, all that stuff. I was doing that shit like a fucking champ. I'm still proficient at it. It's insane how good I am at stealing people's toilet paper. You know what I'm saying? And the only access that I had to internet was going to the public library, where I also stole toilet paper from. Like, being in that kind of struggle makes things tumultuous with your relationships. So by this time, my mother and I were at each other's throats, constantly fighting. She's trying to hold on for dear life for her job and mad at me because I don't have one. And I'm sitting here frustrated and stressed out because by this time, bill collectors for my student loans and credit cards are starting to fucking annoy the fuck out of me. Stress from all fucking angles. And that led me to doing a lot of couch surfing, doing a lot of squatting, and exacerbating everything else that could be exacerbated for the worse. My depression got worse. My panic attacks got worse and more frequent. Night terrors that I had as a child came back with a vengeance. My suicide ideation got worse. And also my substance abuse got worse. And after one very severe panic attack, I woke up one day and I looked around, and as I was coming out of the panic attack, this thought, as clear as fuck, like as the clearest thought I've ever had in my life, hit me. And it was like, my nigga, you can't do this anymore. If you don't get out of fucking South Florida, you're going to die.
Run, bitch! Run!
And at that point is when I decided to hit up the recruitment office and to see what they have. Now, I'll be honest with you. Political ideology and stances and all that shit being accepted by leftists or socialists or anarchists, whatever the fuck, none of that means anything to me personally. The thing that I lost was my moral compass, my own principles, the way that I wanted to live as a human being. That's what I sacrificed. In exchange, the thing that the military gave me immediately was a roof over my head, job security, health care, and hope. Immediately. And those four things were the most important things to me. Way more important than my moral compass at the time. Having that opportunity to have hope, most importantly, was everything to me. Because then I had tools. So by the time I got out of boot camp, I could make plans. I don't think a lot of people understand how important it is to be able to make a plan and think that you can realistically enact them, right? I was able to make a plan like, okay, I could pay this off, student loans, all this other stuff. And not only that, I can start planning on things that I had given up years ago. I gave up on going to college. I gave up on being an artist and writing and all these things. I had given up on everything because the only thing that my whole world was revolving around was scrounging up enough to survive and doing something fun so that there was something in my life that wasn't complete and utter shit. And I'd been in the Navy for about 3 years. And for the whole 3 years, I stayed the fuck away from Florida. Till this day, that message in my mind is fresh. I don't go back to South Florida but once every 5 years because I am convinced that if I spend any time longer than a week in Miami, I'm going to die. Get out. I'm in the Navy for about 3 years. And I felt like at the time, well, this is safe. You know, I can go back down there and see family and all this other stuff. And not only that, I wanted to visit my math teacher because outside of my mother, this math teacher was the only adult in my life that was fully invested in me as a human being. So I go to visit her. I hit her up. She's working. And I'm like, hey, you know, when you have time, I would like to take you out to lunch and, you know, we can talk and all this other stuff. And she's like, yeah, well, I have one more class to teach. You can sit in the class or whatever, but, you know, then we can go to lunch. So I'm like, bet, that's fine. I'm sitting in this class and the situation with Trayvon Martin just happened. So I'm sitting there and I'm listening to all these kids and they're talking about what happened to Trayvon Martin. And, you know, this is South Florida, you know, and Trayvon looks like every other kid in this fucking school, you know, and it really hit home for them. And all of them were like, nobody wanted to talk about math. Every one of them wanted to talk about organizing because at that point in time, they had all decided that they were going to do a walkout for Trayvon Martin. So I'm sitting here watching these kids, listening to them talk about what they're going on, what they're dealing with and all this other shit. And I noticed that there's one kid in the back of the class and he's just doodling, minding his business. He's not engaging with anything. He's not talking about anything. I don't even think that nigga was going to do the walkout. He was just fucking writing. Like, when we finally go to lunch, I asked my teacher about him. I'm like, yo, what's up with that kid? Like, you know, he didn't really seem interested in any of that shit. And she was like, yeah, you know, he has a little bit of a rough time. Like a lot of the kids give him a rough time because, you know, he's going through a lot of stuff at home. He doesn't really do that well in school. You know, he comes to school, like he doesn't really have like clean clothes to wear and all this other stuff. Like she's just telling me like what she's noticed is that this kid is struggling and his family is struggling because mind you, it's still 2012. And despite the fact that TV is telling everybody that life is getting better because we have Obama as president and Wall Street is doing so much good right now, people are still fucking struggling. So this kid is one of those people. So I'm leaving my high school and the kid, the quiet kid, pulls me aside and he's like, yo, can I talk to you for a minute? Like, you know, you got time? And I'm like, yeah, man, whatever, you know, fuck it. So we start politicking and parlaying and I'm listening to this kid and he's like trying to pick my brain about joining the military and shit. And he's like, yeah, man, like, you know, so you said that you're in the military and stuff. Like, how did you do that? What was like, he's trying to, I can tell immediately that this kid is not stupid. And he's also probably way more aware of his position in life than the kids who are talking about going on this walk out for Trayvon Martin, this protest. So I'm like, you know, like, I'm gonna be honest with you, my nigga. Like, the only thing that the military did for me is get me out of poverty. You know, I'm like, it's the second, like, and I'll be honest with y'all, like, the second most traumatic event in my life was serving in the Navy. So I don't really know if that's the route that you want to fucking take, like, in all honesty, because there's other things, you know, like, I get that all you see is this, but there are other things after this, and you might not want to make that sacrifice. But he's like, yeah, man, you know, I get it and all this other shit, but like, you know, I got this homeboy and I got these people who are like wanting me to do this, but I maybe like this. And like, I'm realizing that this kid is telling me that he understands that he's at a fork in the road because he's getting ready to graduate. And for him, it's like, I can't be some exceptional fucking Negro that can get all these goddamn scholarships to go to college. Like, I only have so many fucking options as a black boy, soon to be considered or already being considered a black man in this city. And it's like, either I can do what my niggas are doing, fuck around, sell drugs or whatever. But that guarantees that the only interface that I have with anything will be the fucking police. Or I can join the military. I think about kids like that. And I know for a fact that because of this recession that we're in right now, there are other kids just like him. there are other adults just like me facing the same fucking shitty fucking options. That's how these institutions thrive. It's how they survive. By forcing everyone to participate. No one has clean hands here. No one. Even the poorest nigga, even that poor kid. I don't know what he did. I don't know if he joined the military or not. Probably not. I don't fucking know. But every single person in this country has to participate in the bloodshed. A lot of the working classes you guys keep saying that you're fighting for, a lot of the black people whose lives you say matter, those are the options that they have. The only options. So while we're out here pontificating and arguing with each other on fucking Twitter or YouTube or whatever the fuck, these people's material conditions have not changed once. Not even a fucking little bit. And we're sitting here mad about how people are functioning in the system that they're forced to function in. I also have a question of like, how far are you willing to go to spread this blood that the military industrial complex has? Like, you understand that the military industrial complex exists. Does it just count for people who enlisted? Does it count for the janitors, the fleet, like the legions of black and brown people who are sitting there cleaning up institutions like the CIA, knowing what it is? This is what the military industrial complex does. It spreads itself out. It's not just in DC, it's every fucking where. And I guarantee you, most of the cities that have military installations in them would not fucking exist without them. Virginia Beach can't have a Something in the Waters festival without its military bases. These institutions require everyone to participate. Cleaning ladies, the janitors, the electricians that come through. Whole ass fucking cities depend on these places. So I have a hard time personally getting revved up about somebody who was in the military because I don't fucking know why they joined. I don't know. Most of y'all don't. I mean, like, up until now, you didn't know why the fuck I joined. And I don't hide the fact that I did it. And I don't hide the fact of what I had to sacrifice to do it. I don't hide the fact of what I received in exchange for my sacrifices. And at the end of the day, self-righteousness did not pay my bills. I can sit here and argue with you or let you yell at me about being a veteran. Sure. But I can't take none of them tweets to FPL, T-Mobile, my mortgage company. I can't take none of that shit and be like, look, Socialist Queen 67 with the corn emoji gave me these. Will this cover my bills for the next couple of months? Like, it's not going to happen. So what I'm saying is, a better thing to do than shitting on a veteran or some shit and yelling at them about how they're a part of the imperialistic regime that's ruined people's lives, the same regime that is ruining their life while they're in the military, if we're being honest. Instead of doing that, it would be nice to get asked, how would you want to change your material conditions to make sure that nobody had to face the decision you made to join? I'd much rather do that. Much rather have a conversation about that for 20 minutes. Because at the end of the day, what matters is changing people's material conditions. We in the middle of a recession. Guarantee you, there's somebody who's just like that kid I talked about, who's just like me, who's just like the janitor, looking for a job, a nigga, a stable one at that. I don't want to make you feel like shit because you took a job being a janitor at some ICE facility. What I want to do is figure out, how are these facilities forcing communities to be dependent on them? And how can we sever that? That's what I want to know. So how about we spend time building options for people to the best of our ability? Because we know the government's not going to do that. Thank you guys for listening, hearing me fucking rant and all the other stuff. You can find me on Twitter at Haven the Haitian. Be good to others. And be good to yourself.